Alright, a very warm welcome back everyone. Today we want to talk about the dominant seventh chords in major and minor scales, in this case in the harmonic minor scale, right? So we talked about the tonic, we talked about the subdominant and dominant when we were talking about the circle of fifths, but there are also names for the other steps in a scale. In particular, if you have your root here, so we're talking about again our C major scale. If you have the root here or the tonic, this is called the supertonic. This is called also the subtonic, yeah, supertonic, mediant. Then you have your subdominant and dominant that you already know, and then you have your submediant, right? Because in this case submediant, because if you are going from your root, you have a third above this would be the mediant, and the third below this would be the submediant. And in this case, you can see we have a major third. In this case, the mediant would be major, but the submediant would be minor, because you only have 1, 2, 3 notes here, right? So this is also something that you can easily check for if you have these medians and submedians. So they usually should be major in a major scale for the mediant and minor for the submediant. And for the minor scale, this then would be the same thing changed, right? So you would have a minor mediant, but you would have a major submediant. So there is also this note here, which I talked about as subtonic, but it also has another name, which is called leading tone or leading note. And the reason for that is, if we now look at our G dominant seventh chord, you also notice that there is this relationship between the B here and the C, such that there is no black note in between, so we only have the half step. And this introduces that the chord would really like to resolve this harmonic functionality back to the root. If we now look at what it means that a chord would like to resolve itself, we want to have a look at sus2 and sus4 chords. So if I'm just playing a major C chord, so a C major chord, then you have a sus4 chord, which is this. So you basically omit the third and add the fourth step, so add the fourth of your scale. And you have the sus2 chord, which is this one, where you omit the third and add the second. And these sus chords would really like to resolve back to your major chord, most prominently, but they can also resolve to minor, especially if you look at the sus2, right? Because there is only one half step between there. For the sus4 chord, it's quite eminent that they want to resolve back to the third, because the third gives up for the character in the chord you are using, and if this third is missing, one of the most prominent things in a chord is missing. So this sus4 chord deeply wants to resolve back to the third in this case. And this resolving character also happens if you look at your dominant seventh chord. So if I'm playing something like this, you feel like you are going back to back to home when you're changing from your G7 back to your C major 7. And the reason for that is this here. If we look at the B here, and if we look at the F here, you have the leading note or the leading tone in your scale of C major on the one hand, namely this B here, and you also have this F, which is strongly trying to resolve back to the E. And what happens is this F wants to resolve back to the E, and your B wants to resolve back to your C, right? And what you get if you omit the second here is this chord. But this chord is basically C on G. So we talk about slash chords in a whole different video, but if I'm just moving those two notes, so the C and the E down here, you see that this is the C major chord, right? And this is a relationship that is called, so this is why you have the dominant seventh chord in your major scale here, because this is the very strong character of resolving back to your tonic. Of course, the same thing also exists in minor, but it exists in a more prominent way if you talk about a harmonic minor scale. And I talked about this earlier. This is the harmonic minor scale. And in this case, you get the E dominant 7th chord in your A minor scale, right? And you have the same procedure here where you want to resolve your B to the C, which is also eminent in the A minor scale, right? And you have this G, which is just a half step away from the A, so basically from your root. So if you have your E dominant 7th, you can lead into the A minor 7th like that. And if I'm again moving those two notes down here, you see that this is in fact the A minor chord, right? So this is one of the reasons why you usually use the A harmonic minor scale and not the A natural minor scale, because this relationship isn't just as strong. Of course it works, but this works much better. And then you also have this, which works much better than right, because it gives a little bit more tension. But what I've played now, this here, this is called a 2-5-1 progression, but we'll talk about those later on.